The manual had his name on it.
The morning sun poured through the tall glass walls of Falcon Ridge Aerospace as hundreds of employees crowded around a silent aircraft engine worth close to $80 million. Engineers had gone 2 nights without sleep trying to get the prototype running again before an international demonstration set for noon. The hangar was thick with tension when the company's short-tempered CEO stormed in and, in front of everyone, rounded on a quiet maintenance technician, tearing into him with cruel, humiliating words. He barked that if the man couldn't understand the machine, the least he could do was read the manual before he touched it again. Red-faced, the technician, a single father, said nothing. He simply reached for the thick maintenance handbook sitting on the workbench. But instead of flipping to a repair chapter, he calmly turned it over to the cover. His own name was printed beneath the title, as the book's original author.
The hangar went dead silent.
Before the story continues, if you believe kindness, humility, and second chances still matter, feel free to like, comment where you're watching from, and share this one with someone who needs the reminder. His name was Marcus Doyle. To nearly everyone at Falcon Ridge Aerospace, he was just a middle-aged maintenance tech in grease-stained gloves and worn-out boots. Almost no one remembered that, years earlier, he'd been one of the company's most brilliant mechanical designers. Long before boardrooms and corporate politics took over, Marcus had helped build many of the maintenance systems that kept the company's aircraft flying safely across the globe. His crowning achievement was a comprehensive engineering manual that turned complicated repairs into clear, practical procedures, one used by technicians in country after country.
Then life changed.
Marcus's wife died suddenly after a short illness, leaving him to raise their young daughter, Harper, entirely on his own.
The weight of it nearly broke him.
Unable to juggle constant overseas engineering assignments with being there for his little girl, he walked away from a prestigious leadership track and took a simpler maintenance job, one that let him sleep in his own house every night.
Titles stopped mattering. Promotions stopped mattering.
Being present for Harper became the center of his whole world. Every morning before sunrise, Marcus made breakfast, did his best, if imperfect, job braiding Harper's hair, packed her lunch with a handwritten note tucked inside, and walked her to school under the early sky before starting his own shift at the plant. Money got tighter after he left executive engineering, but the house never ran short on laughter, home-cooked dinners, bedtime stories, and love that never wavered. Years passed. New executives came through the doors at Falcon Ridge, people who understood profits and PowerPoints better than they understood people. Old records gathered dust in the archives. The names behind the company's breakthroughs slowly faded from memory. Marcus never bothered correcting anyone who assumed he'd always been just a maintenance man. Recognition had never been the point for him. Quiet purpose was.
One Tuesday morning, Falcon Ridge was gearing up for the biggest engine demonstration in company history. Representatives from several international airlines packed the observation deck above Hangar 7. Win the contract, and thousands of jobs were secure for years. Lose it, and layoffs were coming. Everything was going fine until the prototype engine refused to complete its startup sequence. The best engineering teams in the building swarmed the aircraft. Diagnostics showed nothing obviously wrong. Sensors gave conflicting readings.
Parts were swapped.
Software was updated.
Hours ticked by while the anxiety in the hangar climbed. Marcus watched from a respectful distance while finishing unrelated work nearby. Something about the approach bothered him. The team was locked onto electronic diagnostics and ignoring the subtle mechanical behavior he could hear and feel through the airframe itself.
Decades of hands-on experience told him the real problem was probably a lot simpler than anyone thought.
Eventually, out of options, a supervisor reluctantly asked Marcus to take a look at part of the hydraulic control assembly.
As he began his inspection, the CEO, a man named Grant Ashford, walked into the hangar trailed by investors and senior executives.
Grant had built his career on aggressive leadership and merciless financial discipline. He was sharp, no question, but success had slowly worn away his humility and replaced it with arrogance. Seeing a maintenance tech working while his senior engineers just stood there watching only made him angrier. Without any idea who Marcus really was, Grant mocked him in front of the entire crowd, loudly demanding to know why some ordinary mechanic thought he could fix what the specialists couldn't. Then came the line that echoed through the whole silent hangar: "Stop guessing and read the manual before embarrassing himself any further." Marcus's face didn't change. No anger, no flinch. He simply picked up the thick maintenance manual resting by the engine, lifted it, and turned it over. Printed clearly under the title were the words, "Original Engineering Manual written and developed by Marcus Doyle." The building went silent. Senior technicians stared, stunned. A few of the older employees suddenly placed the name, remembering stories of the brilliant engineer who'd reshaped the company's entire maintenance philosophy before quietly stepping out of leadership years ago. All the confidence drained from Grant's face. For the first time that day, it hit him exactly who he'd just humiliated in front of a room full of people. Marcus didn't smile, and he didn't gloat. He just calmly opened the manual to an obscure inspection procedure most younger engineers had never bothered learning, since modern software had mostly replaced it. It called for checking a tiny synchronization pin buried deep in the fuel control linkage. A part worth less than $50 that could easily slip past electronic detection when it wore down a certain way. Minutes later, the technicians found the damaged pin exactly where Marcus said it would be. The fix took less than 20 minutes. When the engine roared back to life, the sound rolled triumphantly through the hangar. Every vibration settled into place. Engineers watched their readouts in amazement as every measurement slid into range. The aircraft completed its demonstration under a clear afternoon sky, and the international contract was secured. Thousands of jobs were safe. While the building erupted in celebration, Marcus quietly slipped out right on schedule to pick Harper up from school, just like he did every single afternoon. That night, while helping his daughter glue together a small wooden birdhouse for a school project, Marcus barely thought about the day. Recognition faded fast. Family stayed. The next morning, Grant showed up at Marcus's modest house, no photographers, no assistants, no entourage. For the first time in years, he came not as a CEO, but as a man asking to be forgiven. Looking around the small living room, Grant noticed framed photos of Harper growing up, homemade birthday decorations still taped to one wall, and a bookshelf where children's books sat right next to engineering textbooks. He finally understood why one of the sharpest minds the company ever had chose a quieter life instead. Marcus told him simply, designing engines had once been his dream. Raising his daughter had become his purpose. The two had never actually been in competition. Grant left that house a different man. Within weeks, Falcon Ridge launched a mentorship program pairing veteran technicians with young engineers. The old archives, once forgotten, were restored and honored. Manuals that had been treated as throwaway paperwork became respected teaching tools again. Leadership training expanded past spreadsheets and quarterly numbers to include humility, listening, and basic respect for every employee, regardless of title. Most importantly, Marcus accepted a new role as Director of Technical Knowledge, mentoring the next generation of engineers while keeping flexible enough hours to still be there for Harper. The promotion wasn't just about his engineering talent. It reflected the quiet wisdom he'd built over years of choosing his daughter over his own ambition. Harper visited the plant sometimes, during family days. Watching young engineers gather around her father for advice filled her with pride. To her, he'd never been famous. He'd just been Dad. Years later, visitors to Hangar 7 would notice a bronze plaque mounted beside that original prototype engine. It read, "The strongest leaders never stop learning. The wisest experts never stop listening. Respect every person. Greatness often wears the simplest uniform." Employees paused to read it before every shift. Most never knew the full story behind it. They didn't need to. The lesson was clear enough on its own: knowledge deserves humility, experience deserves respect, and no title should ever outweigh basic human dignity. As the sun went down over the runway one evening, Marcus stood beside Harper, watching another aircraft climb gracefully into the darkening sky. He smiled, knowing that engines eventually wear out, companies eventually change, and manuals eventually get replaced by newer editions. But the lessons taught through compassion, humility, and unconditional love keep flying long after we're gone. In the end, his greatest legacy was never the manual with his name on the cover. It was the daughter who carried his values in her heart, proof that the finest thing any parent can build isn't a machine that conquers the sky, but a child who grows up believing that kindness, respect, and integrity will always lift people higher than pride ever could.